and welcome. My name is Ayanda Mugwana, and for today's video I'm gonna be giving you 10 tips on how to ride pleasantly in a South African taxi. But many people may wonder, why would one need tips just to ride in a taxi? Well, those that know, and those that don't know will find out why in this video. So let's get into it. Tip number 10, do not pay with 100 or 200 rand notes in the morning. Drivers do not take kindly to someone that has that much money in the morning. I'm kidding. This is because drivers usually do not have change in the morning. So if it's a short distance trip, just make sure that you have just enough for that trip, or you have enough money that would not require a lot of change. Tip number 9, do not lie about your child's age. Now, this one is a bit confusing because some children look younger than they actually are, others look older than they actually are. Now, most of the time, drivers would not have a problem when you decide to put a child on your lap, and when people pay, they would most of the time overlook it as that child being under the age of 3. But most also, when that child begins speaking in the taxi, most drivers would want the mother to start paying, and they would make the reasoning that this child speaks like they are not 2 or they're over 3 years old. So I would suggest that you just be honest. If you do not have enough money for the transport, just say, may I please put my child on my lap, and we just move. Otherwise, you're gonna be known as a mom fraud, mom crimes. I don't think anyone would want their mother to be a criminal. Well, it's not criminality, but it would just be best to be honest. Tip number 8, do not request an Uber or a Taxify near the taxi rank. Now, this is relative. For where I live, we never have a problem between taxi drivers and taxify drivers. But in some parts of the country, taxi drivers tend to violate and harass taxify and Uber drivers. So I would advise, especially if it's during the day, I would advise that you first make sure that it is safe to request, or you move on to maybe the entrance of the mall or a garage or somewhere that would be safe for the Uber driver to find you. Tip number 7, do not sing along in the taxi. Many people would think everyone would know this, but there tends to be people that would do this in the taxi. And the problem with this is that taxi music is usually loud, and when you're also loud, it may make the ride unpleasant for other people, and they may end up confronting you, which would also make the ride unpleasant for you. So I would advise that you not do it. Tip number 6, do not enter a taxi without confirming its destination. Now, I'm not saying people should not go to places that they do not know. I'm saying just make sure that the taxis that you're entering are going to the places that you're going, or they're at least going to be on the route of where you're going to be getting off. Now, for people that are afraid of speaking up in the taxi, I would highly advise that you firstly speak to the driver before you enter, so that they know that you do not know where you're going and they can take extra care of you. They do that best, trust me. Now, if you do not want to speak to the driver, because most people find drivers to be intimidating, you could confirm with the other passengers in the car. But I would just suggest that you speak to the driver first, so they know if the route that you're on is gonna be best for where you're going. Tip number 5, do not speak English in the taxi. Now, this may seem a bit harsh, but you're gonna know after you've spoken English in the taxi that you should not have done that. So if you do not know the local language, speak the nearest thing to that local language. If you do not know isiZulu, speak isiXhosa. If you do not know Chivenda, speak Sepedi. Speak anything. You can even speak isiXhosa in Venda if you do not know how to speak Chivenda. But the last thing that you must do is to speak English in a text. It's just going to ruin your whole ride. Trust me on this one. It's gonna mess up everything. I'm sure you all don't want that. Litter. Most taxis usually have stickers in them that warn against littering, but they're usually along the lines of only a pig would eat something and then throw the trash to the floor. You're already being called a pig. I think that's warning enough. However, However, this is a big however. Just because you cannot throw out your trash in the taxi does not mean it must go to the main road. South African main roads have been characterized by absolute dirt, especially because of taxi users. We can and should do better. If you're going to town, throw out the trash when you arrive in town in a dustbin. If you're going home, throw out the trash when you get home. Who do you think is responsible for the trash that you're throwing on the main road? I'm getting agitated because why do you do that? It is all of us' responsibility to ensure that this country is clean. Let us do this together. Do not throw. I judge people. If you throw out trash in a taxi that I'm in, I'm going to judge you so hard. That will be the last time that you do something like that. People should be shamed to do that. Why am I so passionate about this? Well, you're making this country dirty. Why am I agitated? Because it agitates me. Let us do better. Tip number 3, do not call the driver driver. Most drivers, which you should not call driver, find it offensive when you call them driver. Driver, I'd like to get off. Some of them just keep driving. So what I do, I usually just say Malumi, which means uncle, even when the driver is in my age group. This helps me a lot. And ladies, this is a tip for you guys as well. If you want to make sure that you and your driver's relationship remains just that, make sure that you call them Malumi with an emphasis so they understand that nothing more could happen in that situation. They are the Malumi that's driving the car, you are the passenger and the person that will be giving them money to take you where you need to go. Tip number 2, you know what? If it were up to me, this would be the only tip that I give. Do not, especially for long distances, do not enter the taxi with KFC. No one likes the KFC guy in the taxi. I promise you. Let me tell you this. If you've ever entered a taxi, you were the least favorite person in that taxi. And I'm telling you, no one has forgotten you. You could be walking somewhere relaxing or in the mall just strolling and relaxing, and somebody would see you and remember and be like, there's that KFC guy from that taxi from Hammanskraal to Joburg. I hate that guy. It's that serious. Nobody likes the KFC guy. Why? Because it's KFC. It smells good and people are hungry. KFC guys, I'm hungry now just thinking about it. And I hate it when I'm in a taxi and someone is having KFC. Like just the scent, you open the window. It's not going away. You end up just closing and hoping you get full, and you do not. That time you are in a 3-hour taxi. Yo guys, KFC is the enemy of a long distance taxi. Do not do it. Do not do it. It's gonna kill people. Now, I think those that eat KFC in the taxi are even worse. You know what? I was actually in a taxi and a driver had said to someone, well, since you're eating, share with the rest of us because you're making all of us hungry. It wasn't KFC, but I think this is what we need to do. If somebody enters a taxi with KFC, we're all going to eat it. This is how we're fixing South Africa. Finish and done. Thank you. Tip number 1, and I'm sure I'm going to be a lot of people's favorite with this one. Do not sit in the front seat. Why? Taxi math. No one likes taxi math. For those that don't know what taxi math is, it just means that you're sitting in the front seat along with the driver, and when people pay, they all pass the money to you, and you would have to be responsible for the change and everything. It's not a pleasant experience. Even when you know math, it just ends up, it dribbles you. It never works out. You'd think you have, sometimes even when you have your calculator pulled out, it dribbles you. It dribbles you. Guys, 1 + 1 in a taxi is not equals to 2. I hope this makes sense. It's exactly that way. I think maybe it's also because it is just stressful to deal with people's monies like that, and you'd have to give it back fast after you've just gotten it. It's a long process. Nobody likes that process. So if you can afford to miss that one seat in the front seat, I would highly recommend that you do not sit in the front seat. That's it for today, you guys. If there are any tips that you feel I may have missed, please make sure to mention them in the comments below. Please like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you're notified each time I upload. Annyeong!